This is Omnivore presents SciDish, a podcast from the Institute of Food Technologists. In each episode, we take a deeper dive into a single topic shaping the future of food. Hosted by the editors of Food Technology, together with IFT members and subject matter experts, SciDish brings you the science, insights, and real-world perspectives that drive innovation, solve complex challenges, and connect disciplines across the global food system. Thanks for joining us. Let's get into the conversation.
This episode of Omnivore is brought to you by Almond Board of California. Learn more about almonds, the ingredient people trust, at almonds.org/trends.
I'm Kelly Hensel, Deputy Managing Editor of Food Technology Magazine. And in this episode of SciDish, we're exploring how GLP-1 therapies are reshaping eating behaviors and what those changes mean for personalized nutrition, product design, and the future of food innovation. To dig into these issues, I'm joined by two experts who look at this moment from complementary angles. Maha Tahiri is CEO and founder of Nutrition Sustainability Strategies, where she advises startups and global food companies on nutrition-driven innovation and long-term health strategy. With leadership experience at companies including Danone and General Mills, Maha brings a systems-level perspective on nutrient density, behavior change, and how food can better support people before, during, and after GLP-1 use. Dave Lundahl is founder and CEO of InsightsNow, a consumer research and sensory science firm focused on how people experience food. His work centers on eating behavior, sensory perception, and habit formation, helping companies design products that deliver satisfaction, satiety, and enjoyment, even as eating patterns change. Together, we'll explore what post-GLP-1 eating really looks like, where nutrition risk and innovation opportunities overlap, and how food companies can show up as true partners in a changing consumer journey. Let's get into the conversation. Thank you, Maha and Dave, for joining me today. I'm very excited to talk about GLP-1s and kind of how it's reshaping nutrition, personalized nutrition, eating habits with consumers. So I want to dig right in and start talking about what are these post-GLP-1 eating patterns? Like, what does that mean in day-to-day behavior? And how are people experiencing food and what's fundamentally changing? So who wants to take a crack at it first?
Yeah, I'd be glad to start. We've done so much research in this area because it's just fascinating, but also so relevant for food companies and ingredient companies and the whole food chain, so to speak. What we know is that, people that are taking these GLP-1 medications, they have significant changes in their eating behaviors. They have reduced appetite. They have these quieting of mental food cues, signals that trigger, people to do what they do, in terms of their food choices and food consumption behaviors. And they have radically changed taste perceptions. Okay. And so these effects lead to users eating, the smaller portions. They have these reduced cravings, and they have these preferences for healthier foods. Which is really interesting as some of the surprises I expected and I heard about before we got into this research, the changes in like perceptions, but the changes in sort of gravitating to healthier foods, which was really interesting, for different purposes. Some people want to lose weight. Some people have diabetes and they want to, modify that and reduce those health risks. Some people just want to look better, lose weight. They feel better about themselves socially and mentally. And, so it's really rich data. And what we've done is we can start peeling the onion, so to speak, to get to insights is taking our knowledge of human behavior, these frameworks that we've learned through behavioral science to get to the more why. What are the motivations, for these changes in eating behaviors, quieting this food noise, which, we can talk about, and these sensory perceptions and so on. It's really, really fascinating in terms of how this is impacting, and then boiling that down into what does the food industry do about that? And what are the risks? What are the opportunities? What's this mean for the future of eating?
I'm wondering, Maha, can you speak to any of are there nutrient risk inherent in these eating pattern changes, or are we not seeing that as much?
From a nutrition perspective, what is probably a common ground here is that unfortunately people are not eating enough. In the first phase, they are truly missing a lot of nutrients. Number one, protein, fibers, vitamin D, B vitamins, hydration, because these medications also decrease the sensation of thirst. And so they're hydrating less. So for me, as a nutritionist, I would say after 30 years of health and wellness, this is a really good medication. But if people are losing the weight with deficiencies in proteins, in minerals, in vitamins, and how is their microbiome, we're losing the weight in a bad way. We're not losing the right way. And that can have really long-term patterns. I would rather see actually these medications as a very, very fantastic window to enter in people's life when they are motivated, especially at the beginning. And the data also from this IQ show that the motivation is really, really very high when they start, and try to keep them and bring them back into a healthier lifestyle. I'm also interested in actually really, and I'll talk about the nutrition standards that we're working on. I love that Dave is doing the why, because I've seen a lot of data of the what, but not why people are doing it. So I think we need more behavioral studies. We need more ethnographies. We really need to know why people do what they do, because if we see a symptom, it doesn't mean that we're going to solve it by just solving the symptom. And this is a moving target. This is a moving target. We'll probably talk about it later, because you have two giant industries that are innovating at the same time. You have the pharma industry, and they are far ahead. And you have the food industry that is doing a lot, but still hesitating because it seems like it's a moving target to them. So this will be a rich conversation to dig in with you, Dave.
I don't know, Dave, if there's any more research that you want to get, talking about that. Why do we want to get into that right now? We can. What are people, how does the food industry, or how can the food industry use that data that you're collecting to make smarter, innovative, innovation pipelines, or what can be done?
Yeah, well, if you think about just some statistics, we know that this is U.S. Statistic, somewhere around 12% of consumers currently have tried GLP-1 prescriptions. Okay, that's a lot of.
More, Dave. I think it's a little more.
I think it could be higher than that. That's a year-old statistics, and we know this is growth. And we know that the projections as the cost comes down, as insurance will pay for things like that, it's going to be as high as 30%. And we also know globally, where are the largest number? What country has the largest number of GLP-1 people on those prescriptions? Is India. So that was very surprising for me to hear. But so this is a global thing, global trend. So anyways, but if companies don't take note of the whys, don't take note, they will be at risk. There's risk, but there's also, where there's risk, there's opportunity. And I think this is the key thing for the food industry to really take note of. And, these medications cause people to eat less. So the demand, is the smaller portion appetites. Now that could be an opportunity in terms of how you design your portion controls. And certainly, a huge area is the altered taste and texture sensitivities. Okay. Another area that we've explored and seen is like the fact that people are eating slower. Okay. Because they want to avoid having nausea but also they feel satiated quicker. That changes their experiences in consumption during a sitting. Okay. And then last, the whole area of nutrition, Maha, that you mentioned is so important, because people know they have to have nutrition, but this is, but they're not able to achieve that. So,
well, I will talk about my own example. I started in health and wellness in 1994, and I took the medication as an ethnography of one, and I forgot to eat for 12 hours.
Oh my God.
I asked my husband to ask me randomly question, what did you eat last? And he's the cook, and I could not remember, but he could. At some point I said, okay, I'm doing this, but I need to protect myself. So I put really an alarm to remind me to eat. I had to have food and beverages in front of me to be able to remember to eat. So it's wow. And I honestly, I spend 50% of my time working on GLP-1. And so I know I need to eat more proteins. I know all of that, but still my brain was just not thinking about it at all.
Yeah.
And so one of my advice to food companies is you need to develop a lot of empathy for consumers who are taking these medications.
Oh, absolutely.
The second thing is, I would say the biggest risk for food companies, they are thinking about GLP-1s as the first generation of GLP-1s. By the way, they're not called anymore GLP-1s in the medical arena. They are called NUSH, nutrient stimulating hormones.
Wow.
Yeah, because they are, or GLP-3s, because they are targeting 3 different receptors. There is amylin, who is not even in the incretin. And so the mechanisms by which these medications will actually function will have an impact on the taste, on the appetite. They're thinking about adding molecules for protein synthesis. And so you would really, really need, so to your question, what do the industry needs to do? First, they really need to understand the journey of the consumer, of the patient. Is it a naive patient? Is it the first time, second time? And we have seen that the behaviors become better in terms of eating better as people take it the second time or third time.
That's good.
2, the medications are changing. And so that's the effect. So this is really a journey for food companies to absolutely increase proteins, increase micronutrient, increase nutrient density, which we have been talking about for 20 years, but now we really have a window. But at the same time, truly see this as a journey. This is not a one and done. This is a journey of people who change, who stop the medication, who take it again, who are actually having an impact on other people around them. And so this should be really seen as more of an offering that has multiple options than just a single one product.
Yeah, that's really good. I see 4 sort of risks in by how companies are currently designing and developing products. To your points, they dovetail so well. The first is like diminished taste tolerance. Okay. People experience stark decreases in flavor tolerances. You probably experienced this yourself. Like sickening sweetness, for things that are prior just moderately sweet. Rich fatty flavors. Having an aversion, no way, 75% of users that we've in our research shows that they report taste changes. Okay. So,
and there is a publication from Lundahl, to your point, in 2017, where they actually really have presented people with a buffet, and they saw really a significant decrease in fatty food versus in sweet and fatty. So the fat is really, really important.
So in sweetness, there's this reward zone that changes, turning what is pleasurable into a punishment.
We'll be back with more SciDish in a moment. But first, a quick message from our sponsor.
With consumers' growing concern with gut health and clean label, the 2026 Innova Trends show almonds are an ideal ingredient for innovation. Their fiber and bioactives can help support digestive wellness, and their naturalness makes them an ingredient people trust. Not only that, but almonds have taste, texture, and aromatic qualities which create a sensory eating experience. Learn more at almonds.org/trends.
And now, back to SciDish.
Artificial sweeteners. What we've seen is people or flavor enhancers often taste artificial or bitter, so they're just not acceptable anymore. And so that could be a risk, for companies that are using those products. This idea of flavor fatigue during the eat, if things are building up, if you have aftertastes that are developing, we're hearing people report that is really fatiguing. And, so they would rather have things that are mild, lightly flavored, so they don't have this overwhelming sense of, I'm just tired of this flavor or whatever. I don't understand it because I've never taken these drugs, but or had these prescriptions. So I think, that's the second is texture. And that we've seen a lot of, since, this idea of satiety, foods that are dry and dense seem to have, there's a lot of that's unappealing or physically uncomfortable. I don't know that you experience that, but that's something we see a lot. They prefer things that are softer, moister, smoother textures. Okay.
If you look at the innovation that Chobani has done, for example, with their drinks, they are completely adapted to that. They are
right,
and also they touch what you said about artificial sweeteners. It's not only the taste, but it's also the why. A person who is taking GLP-1, there is some data, some consumer data that shows that they are looking for less processed. They are looking for cleaner labels. So it's a mix between what their head is telling them, because they are in a time where they are taking care of themselves in every way possible and spending money for it. And so, I agree with you.
Yeah. So anyway, that's a, very, very, very interesting area. I think this, I find it fascinating about this idea of pacing of food, eating slower and more deliberate, where eating becomes more a utilitarian. It's food, it's fuel, and nutrition rather than an indulge.
I'm going to tend to agree and disagree on that one.
Okay, all right.
Because eating slower doesn't mean actually just getting the nutrients. Because one of the issues we have in the United States, I'm Moroccan and French, and I lived in 4 continents. One of the problems we have is that we swallow food so quickly that we really don't have the time to really like it. And so eating slower is a good thing. It's not something that actually diminishes the role of the food in the life of people. By the way, there is right now a study in the Netherlands, Restructure called. It's about ultra processed foods, and they
it's a great project.
Comparing the slow eating food that are processed and fast. And with the fast, people eat 396 calories more per day. So eating slowly does decrease your intake of calories because you are really giving the signals. In the case of a GLP-1 user, there are a lot of signals that are actually changing with the medication. And so I I wish we could keep that eating pace when people drop from the medication, because many of them do drop from
No, I think slow eating is, I think, one of the opportunities in food product design to design food. I did a podcast last year on slow eating, and it's based on a lot of the work was done from that project in the Netherlands, which is really cool. The fourth is air in nutrition, and as you mentioned, I think it's so important. I think people really do struggle, to get enough protein.
I was just going to say, so it's interesting to me because they do have different needs, obviously, in terms of their, well, in Maha, back to what you said, in terms of, we've been trying to make foods more nutrient dense for what, like 20 years, and we've been trying to convince people that's what they need. So if they're looking for more nutrient dense foods, but they do obviously have these impacts from the medication in terms of flavor fatigue, and it seems, and especially like the flavor fatigue seems to be kind of counterintuitive of what everybody else that's not on GLP-1s is looking for: bolder flavors, more, like sour flavor. I don't. So how does product design get to, are they looking for specific products that are just for them? Or is that too exclusionary? Are we looking for a redesign of all products in some way that suits the need? Or is it more personalized? I'm wrestling with that right now.
I think it's both. Go ahead, Dave.
No, I was going to say, I agree with that. I think I think personalization is really important, but there's a emerging class, especially with all these different types of prescriptions that will be coming on market, and the lowering of the costs and so on. This is a category of people that need attention. And but their attention is going to be different. You got to really look at it at the, like you said, the human level. You got to have empathy for people that are going through their different journeys. And but the idea of GLP-1 friendly as a label, I think, is going to be more and more important. The research we've read is that this GLP-1 friendly as a term, as a label, is highly associated with food and beverages.
Okay.
And that association means that it is something that is tractable, that can be utilized, and people will understand it when it comes to food and beverage marketing. And I think that's a really important component. So, but what does that mean? Okay.
Right.
And I think this is a challenge for the industry that we need to really define, but it's addressing all of these issues that are both a risk and an opportunity for food companies in food product design, and addressing these four areas that I was talking about.
Yeah. Hopefully we will come up with a little bit of answers, because we are planning in the nutrition profiling project to actually test claims, and which claims are, and that is an area that is also changing a lot. Between 2020 and now, we see that the stigma is much less. When this has happened in many diets, when restaurants start to label that they have menus for people who are taking GLP-1, that takes the stigma out. And then you start seeing it in products, you start seeing it in aisles of grocery stores. And now we have that. We have really a few chains that have Chipotle started, others will. So I do believe that some stigma is going away.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is not like diabetes. By the way, the purchasing behavior of someone who's taking GLP-1 for diabetes or for weight loss is completely different. Completely different. We see much more differences in their purchasing behavior when they are actually taking the medication for weight loss than we see it for diabetics.
I think the idea of looking at the whole journey as you mentioned earlier, Maha, is extremely important. The idea of how people experience food before they take a GLP-1, while they're on it, and then what is the transition off of that, I think is really an important topic to address.
I am a strong believer that the food industry should position themselves as a companion, truly as a companion, as a partner in this journey, and should be more proactive in being out there saying, we are here to help you. We're here to understand you. We're here to help you. We're here to actually really listen to you and design the products with the nutrient content, with the cues, with the format, with the affordability, with the convenience that goes with the life that you want to have now. Whether it is during or after when people leave. I can tell you, when I stopped the medication, hunger came back like a monster. I was never as hungry as when I stopped the medication. So they need really help during that phase of, and nutrition and behavioral intervention is really, really important.
What do you guys see as one key practical takeaway for product developers who are listening to this and they may know what they need to do, but something that they should rethink? For me, like listening to you both have this conversation, it's about making sure you're taking in that whole journey, that whole user experience. What do you guys think?
I think this idea I'm going to go to the idea of personalization versus segmentation.
Yeah.
Okay. Two ways of, and I'll boil this down to thinking about the food industry down to I'll take it down to a product developer, but initial a specific project that somebody might be working on. I believe that we need to move from a shift from individual customization thinking towards smart segmentation, micro segmentation within categories, and or for specific brands. And we need to be able to get to that level, and where the industry can identify people with specific needs in their journeys and be able to then effectively market those products with the promise and deliver. And I think this is so important. It's not just looking at people as marbles that you group, but is looking at people in the context of different moments of their life during these journeys. That's what I mean by segmenting, micro segmenting. It's looking at these situations, because if you look at all the different categories of different products that are out there, more we can target moments, people's lives, on the go moments, breakfast moments, snacking moments, whatever these moments are, and people that have these specific needs. I think that creates the ability to better serve consumers and for healthier lifestyles and things that'll be rewarding and so on.
I really would have a very practical takeaway for product developers, and it would be really, this is a very moving target. And product developers, food companies, I worked for 22 years in the food industry. They don't like moving targets, but this is a moving target that has a journey. And so there is a time when you can enter in their life, and there is a time where you cannot. When they're dropping from the medication, they absolutely want to go back to their friends and fries. That is what they want to do. And so really listen to your consumers and be aware. This is two giant industries that are innovating at the same time. Normally, they don't intersect so much. Please look at clinical.gov. Look at what's coming on the pipeline. Look at what they're addressing, and look at how some side effects will disappear, some other aspects will be addressed. So you have a pipeline of innovation as a product developer for this needs, and not just a moment or a microsegmentation for some point. The ones who will be nimble, who will try and fail, who will understand their consumers, who will take this as a journey, who will be very smart in following what the pharma industry is doing to be ahead of the curve, are going to succeed.
Yeah, I think that's a great place to end the conversation. I really appreciate you guys both taking the time to talk to me today.
Our thanks to this episode's sponsor, Almond Board of California. Learn more about almonds, the ingredient people trust, at almonds.org/trends.
And that concludes this episode of Omnivore Presents SciDish. Thanks again to our guests for another amazing discussion. SciDish is produced by the Institute of Food Technologists and the editors of Food Technology magazine. To learn more about IFT and how we convene global food system professionals to advance the science of food, visit IFT.org. If you're not already a member, head to IFT.org/membership to find your place in the IFT community. For more insights, ideas, and innovation, check out our sister podcast, Omnivore, on the News and Publications page of IFT.org. Join us again next month for another timely discussion. This is Omnivore Presents SciDish.